is Mary Jane Hurditt. I have the incredible privilege of leading the West region of London Church. Thank you, Michelle, for giving me this opportunity to share. The title of my short charge is The Path of Greatness. So, the path to greatness. So my one and only point is the path to greatness is the path of lowering yourself so God can lift you up. Matthew 18, verse 1-4 reads, "At that time, the disciples came to Jesus and asked, 'Who then is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven?' He called a little child to him and placed the child among them. And he said, 'Truly I tell you, unless you change and become like little children, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven. Therefore, whoever takes the lowly position of this child is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven.'" The Greek word for great or greatest is meson, which is great in the widest sense. It comes from an external form. So it's not within our physical capacity. It's spiritual. In Luke's account of this passage, you see the disciples arguing with one another. Who is the greatest? They were so competitive. They weren't asking, "Lord, what can we do to be great?" Instead, it was, "Lord, affirm why I am so great." Wanting Jesus to meet their insecure needs. And it can be so easy for us to look down on them. But we have to ask ourselves the question as well, like, do we have this heart of entitlement? Like, do you think you deserve a position that you don't have over somebody else? And Jesus tells them very plainly, unless you become like children, small, pure, and humble. Children do not try to be humble. They just are humble. And it's like, if you think about an imitation of humility, it's actually quite sickening in God's sight when we try to be humble, when you try really hard. And I know I've been there. I don't know if any of you sisters can relate. When you're in a situation or a discipling time and you're like, okay, what's the humble thing I can say right now? And you try to manufacture that spirituality. Okay, what's the one thing I can do right now that okay. And it's like, no. Or we say amen when we're not really behind a decision. That amen is false humility, which is a false amen. But genuine humility is attractive. I think about children. I love my daughters, both of them, Amelia and Layla. But I love Amelia. She teaches me a lot about humility. She's 2.5, and she has absolutely no shame in looking bad, no shame in telling people when she's done her number 2s, when she's been not listening to dad. She tells it all, and I love it. Because I can deal with it. I can help her. But I'm not like that. I'm not like my daughter. Who here likes to look bad in front of people? Nobody. We want to look good. Who here wants to look good in front of people? We want to look good because it feels good to look good. But spiritually, it's fleeting and deceiving. And in my nature, I definitely don't want to look bad. I want to look put together. I want to look like I have it together. I hate looking bad. Because when people get to see that ugliness of my heart, I can attach that to fear and judgment of people around me. And I don't want to seem incompetent. But that actually is a prison. That's not freedom. You know the saying, you look the worst to grow the most. And so, I was challenged to go after my ugliness more. And I'm really encouraged about a few friendships I have, but I love my friendship with Rebecca Basari. We just get real with our struggles. We can look ugly together, and that's okay because it purifies us, and I love that. Sisters, are you gut level open about where you're at? Are you gut level open about the things that you seem like, oh, okay, let's just push that to the side. We don't need to speak about that. Do your friendship groups or even the people that you lead, do they know the real you? Do they know your weaknesses? Or are you too perfect to show any weaknesses? I think about Jesus and his perfect example of humility and servitude. He humbled himself to death on the cross. And I was thinking about this the other day. When we see Jesus on the cross, on the pendant, We notice his face looks quite tranquil. Like he looks like it's quite peaceful. But that's far from reality. Like, he was dying horrifically on the cross. He was completely transfigured, bloodied, and bludgeoned. He was naked and vulnerable. It wasn't a sight to be enamored by, like, oh my days, wow, Jesus, you're on the cross. It was oh gosh, I can't look. It was horrific. It was ugly. And Jesus was obedient to that. Imagine if Jesus had said, I don't want to look bad in front of people. God, you know my heart. Let me die with dignity. Not in front of women, at least. But he didn't. He was naked on the cross. He scorned its shame, and it convicts my heart. Because when I don't want to look bad in front of people, it's because they're an idol, and I've lost sight of the cross. And when we don't want to serve in an area, maybe because we think it's beneath us or we want a better role, it's because you're an idol. So we have to really check our hearts, sisters, because again, it's the lowest that Jesus raises up. Jesus truly looked the worst among men, at the men of his time, and he was exalted to the highest place by God for the purpose of salvation. The practice of perfection is the pathway to destruction, just like Jesus. You will never be great trying to be perfect. When you try to be first, you actually put yourself under a curse. Sisters, be inspired by Jesus' humility. I'm inspired by Jesus' humility because our motivation really isn't to puff ourselves up or, okay, I want to be humble so I can grow. I want to be humble so I can do great things. No, we should be humble because that pleases God. When Jesus was baptized, God says, this is my son who I'm well pleased. So that was his desire to please God. And as a byproduct, he grew and he was exalted. And so for us, when we humble ourselves, when we really just go low and scorn the shame of people, scorn what we look like, scorn the ugliness, when we do it because we want to please God, as a byproduct, you will grow, you will do great things, and it won't be for your glory, it will be for the glory of God. So my one and only practical is to ask your discipler in what way you can be more humble and actually be intentional about it. Humility isn't natural. You have to be intentional about it. And so I believe with this, sisters, we can do even greater things. And to God be the glory.
My God is amazing.